watching the Mystical Green Beanie.
Hey, what's going on, dudes and dudettes? I'm the Mystical Green Beanie, and today, I know that I'm late to the party, but I wanted to talk about Marvel canceling all of their X titles and relaunching the X-Men under Jonathan Hickman. So, first things first, I'm really sick and tired of Marvel constantly rebooting and relaunching their titles. In fact, I'm sick of the big two doing it in general, but this is one of those rare exceptions. You know, this isn't like when Bendis relaunched and renumbered Superman for the third time in 8 years, or when Kelly Thompson relaunched and renumbered Captain Marvel for the 5th time in 6 years. This is one of those relaunches that feels necessary. So X-Men has become, well, putting it lightly, a dumpster fire. And part of that is because Marvel tried to give the middle finger to Fox Studios, because Fox used to own the X-Men movie license and Marvel Studios didn't, so they tried to replace the X-Men in prominence with the Inhumans, and nobody liked that. But it's not completely the fault of movie studio behind the scenes crap that X-Men ended up being a fucking joke, because, and I'm sure this is gonna be an unpopular opinion, but I feel like the X-Men have been struggling ever since Grant Morrison wrapped up his run on the new X-Men back in 2004. And there have been some good runs and some good stories ever since then. Joss Whedon and John Cassidy's Astonishing X-Men was pretty good. Rick Remender's X-Force was really good, according to a lot of people. I've never read it, but I will eventually. I'm planning on reading it. It's one of those books that I plan on getting to. Jason Aaron's Wolverine and the X-Men was decent. And, yeah, the X-Men have had it very rough for a long time. Between the whole thing with Schism and Cyclops becoming Mutant Hitler and Avengers vs. X-Men, where the X-Men just get completely thrown under the bus, and Bendis being Bendis, and the whole thing with the time-traveling X-Men from the 60s coming to the future, and X-Men Gold, and X-Men Blue, and Jean Grey came back, I think? Or was it a fake Jean Grey? I don't know. I didn't even bother with Phoenix Resurrection. And then there's the whole thing with the X-Men Red series, which I've been told is okay, but for me, Tom Taylor is seriously hit or miss. Mostly miss. So the X-Men have had it rough for the past couple of years, and for that reason, this is one of the few instances where I don't mind Marvel just scorching the earth and starting over. And this brings me to the actual series of House of X and Powers of X. So, Jonathan Hickman said that he fought tooth and nail for a line-wide cancellation of all the X titles because he wanted readers to focus on House of X and Powers of X as a smooth transition into a new era of the X-Men, one which would return the X-Men to their rightful prominent position in the Marvel Universe. He also explained that both House of X and Powers of X would springboard him into the flagship X-Men title, which he himself would be writing. Now, this excites me for multiple reasons. Reason number one being that this is Jonathan Hickman writing the X-Men. So for those of you who don't know, Jonathan Hickman is one of my favorite writers working in comics today, and I think he might actually be one of the best writers working in comics just in general. And to say that I'm excited to see what Hickman does with these characters and this side of the Marvel Universe, well, that's far from just being an understatement. Now, I have heard rumblings that his X-Men run will mirror Age of Apocalypse, which does cause me some concern, but that's mostly because, A, I've never read Age of Apocalypse, because the premise that I've been pitched on just doesn't do it for me, which brings me to point two. I'm hesitant to read this book if it's going to be some alternate reality bullshit, which is what I've been told Age of Apocalypse is. But the thing is, this is Hickman. He's the master of taking something that sounds stupid and, actually making it really cool. For example, the whole idea that S.H.I.E.L.D. started out as this science cult, and Leonardo da Vinci is one of its oldest members, and when he died, he traveled to the 4th dimension so that he could witness the birth of a baby Celestial, and Michelangelo is God, I think? Yeah, It sounds bizarre. Bizarre in a cool way, but also in an easy to fuck up kind of way. But Hickman takes these easy to fuck up concepts and not only executes them like his name is John Wick, he makes that shit look easy. And he does a lot of this in some of his indie work as well, most notably East of West. But I suppose that's somewhat expected of writers to produce amazing indie work since they are putting their heart and soul into it. But when it comes to licensed properties, sometimes creators slack off and don't want to inject what they feel are their best ideas into something that they don't own 100%. But Hickman just has idea after idea after idea after idea, and he always manages to find fresh new ways to tell old stories, or new stories to tell with old characters. And something else that I find so admirable about the man as a writer is that no matter what he's working on in terms of Marvel properties, everything is both sacred and ripe for reinvention. Like, Hickman will find a way to honor the material that came before him, while also saying,
"Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now."
And I think that's exactly what the X-Men need right now, and in many ways, and I've heard a lot of people throw this comparison around, this is like when Grant Morrison took over the X-Men. Now, from what I've read of the pre-Morrison era, the stories weren't terrible, but the X-Men were definitely in need of a shakeup. And Morrison and Quietly were the perfect pair to make that happen. And I feel like this is history repeating itself. The X-Men are in a really weird spot right now. Some people are enjoying what's coming out currently, but a lot of folks I've talked to are just, they're kind of bummed that the X-Men aren't what they used to be. And in the same way that Morrison and Quietly rose the bar back in the early 2000s, I feel like Hickman is gonna reinvigorate the X-Men later this year, and I'm really excited about this. And I do think that if you haven't been reading the X-Men, or if you've been disillusioned with the X-Men of the comics as of late, or you're new to comics and you want to start reading the X-Men, the time is now. Hickman is your guy. And I have faith that he's going to deliver on his promise and make the X-Men what they once were. Also, you guys have no idea how hard it is to refrain from saying that he's going to make the X-Men great again. Just that phrase, I don't feel comfortable saying it, especially within the context of the X-Men, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. Now, as excited as I am for Marvel editorial to just clean house and start over with the X-Men, I do feel kind of bad for everyone who is working on an X-Men title currently. Because this pretty much came out of nowhere, and from what I understand, pretty much every creative team working on an X-book found out about the line-wide cancellation the same time we did. Which, okay, that sucks, and that's just poor management. But as poorly handled as the whole situation is, I still think rebooting the whole thing under a writer of the caliber of Jonathan Hickman is a far better alternative as opposed to just letting the X-Men fester as they are currently. Plus, I'm just excited to see what Hickman does with the X-Men and what spins out of the first wave of X-Men books after House of X and Powers of X, because, as Hickman mentioned, he's gonna tell this epic story in waves. And I don't know what that means, but I can only assume he's gonna do what he did in his build-up to Secret Wars, where he wrote Fantastic Four, then Avengers World, S.H.I.E.L.D., Infinity, and a few other books before finishing everything up in Secret Wars. And just to do what he did with those books, telling one big story, and to do that with the X-Men, if that's what he's doing, then that's going to be really cool. And I am absolutely 110% down for that. Anyways, guys, that was me rambling for a few minutes about Hickman taking over the X-Men. Honestly, I'm just hoping, I am hoping that he breathes new life into the X-Men like he breathed new life into the Fantastic Four and the Avengers back when he was writing those books. Granted, this does mean that East of West will be delayed, even more so than it already is. But you know what? I'm okay with that. But those are just my thoughts. But what about you? What are your thoughts on Hickman taking over the X-Men? What are your thoughts on the line-wide cancellation? What are your thoughts on the X-Men just being completely rebooted? Let me know down below in the comment section. Also, if you like this video, hit the like button, share, support the channel, and if you want to see more content like this, all you have to do is subscribe. I'm the Mystical Green Beanie. Thanks for watching, and as always, until next time, adios nachos, adios.